So I would like to talk to you today about building feature teams, but especially in huge products. Seeing as we have to use examples, and I work in Nokia, I'm going to answer your question shortly. And the examples I would like to use are two telecom products that Nokia does right now, not phones, the IPA 2800 platform and the LTE eNote B. Both of these are products for telecom service providers rather than end users. But what's actually interesting about these from this talk's point of view is the scale. So let's talk about that for a while. The IPA platform was a product developed by around 500 people across two sites in Finland and China, whereas the LTE product is a product which is being developed by thousands of people, so many that it's actually difficult to tell how many exactly. And these are scattered across dozens of sites in all the countries, cultures, and time zones that we could get our hands on. Is this a challenging enough environment to set up for feature teams and actually go agile? Well, we could actually make it even more difficult and say that these are not greenfield projects. So we have a pre-existing organization, we have a pre-existing structure in a very traditional flavor for both of these, and then at a certain point in time, we decide that we want to start doing things agile, and among other concepts, we want to implement feature teams for these. And when I say that these are traditional, I mean that these adhere to a very traditional flavor of Conway's Law. So, the organizations as product building organizations are constricted to mirror in their systems the internal structure of the communications and the company. So in terms of a traditional organization and a waterfall, we typically, and this was the case for both of these products, we have a specification sub-organization that does the work of distributing the stuff to the component teams. We have component organizations, so then the work goes through component A organization, component B organization, component C organization. These all finish their work, obviously always on a timely matter because everything is known and we can predict that. And they ship it over to the testing sub-organization. And the testing sub-organization has to integrate that, and should something go wrong, they have to bring back work to the other organizations. And if you want to introduce feature teams in a multi-thousand people organization like this, there is an argument you're sure to hear, and that's crazy talk. It can't be done. Feature teams are a really nice idea for startups and for small companies that do web development, but with enterprise-class products, it's completely impossible, because look at these org charts. We've got 40 components, 40. Each of these has a team of specialists that took years to train. So this is a lot too complex to actually be able to close in an 8-person team and have all the necessary competencies. And that is true. At least the observation part. Because whereas the observation part holds ground, the reasoning, not exactly, because what do we want a feature team to do? We do not want a feature team to build the entire product from scratch every iteration. We want the feature team to deliver a feature. And with products like these, you can still have pretty cohesive groups of features. So for the eNote B, for example, we can have radio-centric features, we can have network-centric features, we can have configuration-centric features. And when these features arrive, given the architecture of the system, they will probably fall into pretty much the same components every time. And never will this be the entire system. This will always be a subset of the components of the system, so that the features can actually build the competencies and go on as they would in smaller products. Does that make any sense to you? Yes. Great, because that's the best explanation I can give in 1 minute. Given this is possible, we can move on and try to implement feature teams in a very huge organization. And this is a topic that has been mentioned today many, many times. So how can we go about this? we can go about this at a certain level of abstraction in two ways. We can do it violently, or we can do it gradually. And in terms of gradual, there are different approaches to doing this gradually. And let's take a look at how we did this for the IPA platform. So for the IPA platform, a team was chosen to try out Scrum and actually do the feature team mode of work. And after a while, they started improving. They started improving a lot over what was the standard before the experiment. And the end result was too good for their own benefit. Because what happened then was an assumption, okay, this is completely great. This is so great, actually, that we can go immediately for the deployment into the entire organization, because we want that everywhere. For 500 people. What we did not know at a time is that there is a rule of thumb for this. So this tactic may actually work if your product is not that huge. If one product owner, one physical person, can handle prioritization for all of the teams involved, that's up to around 8 teams, incidentally the same number of members that a feature team can have while still functioning effectively. If you have this situation, then you can probably go for a flip of the switch and everything should work fine. But what happened in IPA, a 500-person organization with a lot of complex components, people were used to the existing communication structures. People were used to the workflow. And when you break that down overnight for everybody, there is nobody to lean on. Everybody just starts going to full panic chaos mode. And that is a pain. In the end, the organization did pull through. And after this initial period of pain, the results started improving significantly, and the product was actually saved and started doing very, very well. But it was too close for comfort, so in general, I would not recommend that in the future. And this is not what we did in the future, because for LTE, we decided to go for a gradual adoption, and we came up with a plan of the gradual adoption. So the idea was we have this organization that is in a completely traditional state now with component teams. This is our starting point. This is the point where we want to go. We want to have feature teams. And how do we get there? So we took the existing teams and we gradually expanded their scope of responsibility by expanding the definition of done. So component teams being not enough, we introduced plane teams. Planes are sets of components that have pretty similar responsibilities, that communicate with each other frequently, and therefore they have a common interest. So we took people from these component teams and we gave them the responsibility of having a shared plane design, of having it tested on the plane level, and we still need multiple plane teams to deliver a feature. So these are definitely not feature teams still. But even this gradual step towards the feature teams is a significant improvement, because there is a lot less coordination work required to deliver the feature now. Instead of synchronizing between 15 or 16 components, we need to synchronize between the planes, and all the internal synchronization we can get out of our hair. So this is a good stepping stone, and one that was difficult to breach, because it still felt like if we take all of these planes and we merge them in the entire organization, this would still be a sort of revolution. We don't want to do that again. It didn't work well with 500 people. It will probably work a lot worse with a few thousand. So what we did was we looked at the options that we still have, and we decided, okay, so we have the entire product testing, the entity testing of the mysterious ET we have here. We can still add that there. It's going to be a bit weird, because we went off the diagonal. So where on the x-axis we have what the team can actually do, on the y-axis we have what the team can actually deliver, it would be natural to stay within the diagonal. But we diverged from this because it was a lot easier to add the testing competence to the teams, rather than adding the ability to build everything and then test everything. This is a bit weird, again, because we need the teams to coordinate between the plane teams that deliver the features, who is testing that, and we just need to pick one of the teams and do the coordination work. This patchwork solution we call the feature owner team. And it sometimes works when the schedules of the teams are in sync, because when you distribute the work and you have separate workflows for separate components or planes, it'll naturally work better if you get actual focus of everybody, just like with the stickies here, in the same direction. So if that happens, this can work. If not, it's basically just a disguise. And how do we improve things from there? Here we actually have a flavor, an LTE flavor of the Conway's Law. Because when we made this decision, we still had a separate entity testing department. So what happened was there was a plane organization, there was a testing organization, and we took people out of this one and told them, you're a team now, go do work as a team. At the same time, their departments had different goals. Their departments were responsible for different features. So even though that improved things a bit still, because we had better communication, we had more conversations between the developers and the testers, and they were actually sitting together, exchanging knowledge and gaining insight from each other on the features that they were working on or working on in the future, we came to a wall, because we just can't go any further if we have these two separate organizations. So what we did then was we merged them together. And rather than having two separate entities, having people in one team, we actually mirrored the way of work into the organization structure, and that enabled deeper learning, that enabled full cooperation, and that enabled actual focus on the one feature that the entire team is working on at a time. And this is a state that is pretty difficult to improve at this point without making a revolution if we stick to the global improvement system. So what can we do to move from there? And the idea was move from the option of improving the DoD globally to improving a part of the organization. So we came to the conclusion that we don't need to do this everywhere, consistently across the entire organization. What we can do is take a slice of the organization, have them become an actual feature team, and work out all the details of how they want their workflow to go, and solve that, have them productive, and then add another feature team, and another feature team. And so with time, we would gradually expand the scope of our organizations to work in an agile way. And we don't have this period of instability, because at the end, we can have an awesome setup with all the feature teams that we need, and we will be paralyzed for 2 years without the ability to deliver. And that doesn't really make sense if you don't have any customers. So we need to maintain continuity. And this is a solution that allows to do that while still getting some improvement. And with this, I am forced to leave you with this cliffhanger, unfortunately, because then I went to this Agile conference in Warsaw, and this is where we are today. So setting this up takes a bit of time. It's a bit complex. And fortunately, after we run this experiment successfully, we can tell you all about the experiences that we gained from that sometime next year, maybe. So, to sum up, you can probably make a flip of the switch change into feature teams if your organization is not that huge. If you have around 70, 80 people and you feel like one product owner can handle it, you can probably do that, and it'll be quick and efficient and have a chance to work. If not, don't do that, because it's very, very risky. What you can do is have a deep and narrow change rather than broad and shallow, because apart from it being difficult to actually make progress at a certain point in time, it's also difficult to make sure that the progress that you're making is real, because small changes are easy to reduce to no changes. And you don't want the big change in the entire organization, so figure out a way to do that in part of the organization and expand from there. And whatever you do, whatever strategy you choose, remember Conway's Law. This is actually something that I've heard in one way or another across a good deal of talks today and yesterday, and being aware of the constraints that you put on your teams from an organizational perspective can greatly improve your chances of success when going for future teams. Thank you.